What does it take to build an empire? In most industries, the answer involves grand ambitions, deep pockets, and aggressive strategy from day one. But the story of New Holland begins with none of those things. It starts with a blacksmith who simply got tired of fixing the same broken equipment. The year was 1895, and Abraham Zimmerman had just opened a small repair shop in rural Pennsylvania. The town shared a name with what would become his company. The area was farming country, muddy roads, harsh winters, and families who depended on their machinery to survive. Every spring brought the same routine. Farmers dragged in engines with cracked cooling chambers, destroyed by the freeze and thaw of another brutal winter. The pattern repeated year after year, and Zimmerman started asking a question most blacksmiths never bothered with. Why did this keep happening? The answer was a design flaw that nobody had fixed. Cooling chambers were built with rigid parallel walls that left no room for expansion. When temperatures dropped and water turned to ice inside those chambers, the ice had only one direction to push: outward. Cast iron could not handle that kind of force. It cracked every time. Zimmerman's solution was simple, but nobody else had thought of it. He redesigned the cooling chamber with a tapered shape, tight at the base, opening gradually toward the top. Now when water froze, it could climb into the available space above, instead of forcing itself against the walls. The engine still froze solid in winter, but it no longer shattered. Farmers noticed immediately. Equipment that used to need replacing every spring now lasted for years. Word spread through the farming community the way it always does when someone actually solves a problem. By 1903, Zimmerman could not keep up with demand working out of his small shop. He needed money to grow, so he did something unusual for a village blacksmith. He offered ownership stakes to his neighbors. 500 shares went to local residents, farmers, shopkeepers, people who had seen his work firsthand and believed in what he was building. They put up $50,000, and that money changed everything. Zimmerman bought a proper factory building and hired 40 workers. The New Holland Machine Company was officially born. A repair shop had become a manufacturer. But here is where the story takes an unexpected turn. This company, founded on one man's practical thinking, would eventually grow not through invention alone, but through a series of mergers and deals that would reshape the entire agricultural equipment industry. The empire that emerged would be built as much in boardrooms as in factories. By the 1920s, New Holland had found its footing. They made freeze-proof engines, feed mills, and wood saws. The company had grown to around 180 employees. Then came 1929. The stock market collapsed and took the farming economy with it. Farmers stopped buying new equipment. They fixed what they had and made do. Orders dried up across the industry. Companies that had operated for generations went bankrupt. New Holland bled money like everyone else. The company that had built industrial engines was now making whatever might bring in a few dollars. Hand tools, small mowers, anything to keep workers employed and the doors open. This was not strategy. This was survival. The turnaround came from outside the company. A local inventor named Edwin Nolt had designed something remarkable. A machine that could pick up hay from the field, press it into bales, tie them automatically, and drop them ready for collection. One operator could do the work that used to require a whole crew. Nolt had the invention but no way to build it. He lacked a factory, equipment, and money. New Holland had all of those things, but nothing customers wanted to buy. Each side had exactly what the other was missing. In 1940, New Holland bought the rights to manufacture Nolt's automatic baler. The timing could not have been better. World War II had started, and farm workers were leaving for military service and factory jobs. American agriculture suddenly needed machines that could replace missing hands. The numbers told the story. A crew of 4 working by hand might bale 10 tons of hay on a good day. One person running the automatic baler could handle 4 times that amount. Between 1940 and 1948, New Holland built more than 32,000 of these machines. The company that had been scraping by just years earlier had become essential to feeding a nation at war. That kind of success does not go unnoticed. A small Pennsylvania manufacturer had become a real force in agricultural equipment, and bigger players were starting to pay attention. In 1947, Sperry Corporation bought New Holland. The deal seemed odd at first glance. Sperry made military equipment, the instruments that kept aircraft flying level, and the systems that guided naval ships. What did they want with a hay baler company? Sperry had spotted something others missed. The war had changed farming permanently. Millions of workers had left the land, and most were not coming back. Every task that once required human hands would eventually need a machine instead. The market for agricultural equipment was about to grow for decades. Sperry brought something new to New Holland: the engineering standards that went into military equipment. The precision that mattered in aircraft instruments now applied to farm machinery. Products got better. Manufacturing got more consistent. But Sperry wanted more than just an American company. They wanted global reach. In 1964, they bought a major stake in Clays, a Belgian company that had built Europe's first self-propelled combine harvester. That single deal gave New Holland instant access to European markets and harvesting technology that would have taken years to develop on their own. The Sperry years produced some of New Holland's biggest breakthroughs. In 1975, the company introduced the first twin-rotor combine harvester. Traditional combines ran grain and straw through together, which caused clogging and damaged the crop. The twin-rotor design handled them separately, improving both speed and quality. By 1980, New Holland had reached $1 billion in yearly sales. The small Pennsylvania company had become a global player, but the equipment market was getting more competitive every year. John Deere was growing. International Harvester was pushing hard. Staying ahead would require more than good products. It would require the kind of scale that even Sperry could not provide on its own. In 1986, Ford Motor Company bought Sperry New Holland for around $330 million plus debt. The deal merged New Holland with Ford's tractor division to create Ford New Holland. Ford had been making tractors since 1907, but they were stuck in an uncomfortable spot. They were not big enough to go head-to-head with John Deere, the industry leader. They were not focused enough to dominate any specialty. The New Holland deal offered a way out of that trap. The fit made sense immediately. Ford knew how to build tractors, but had never cracked the harvesting market. New Holland owned hay equipment and combines, but needed better row crop power. Each company filled the gaps in the other's lineup almost perfectly. Ford kept both brand names alive: Ford on tractors, New Holland on harvesting equipment. This protected the loyalty each name had built over decades. A year later, they added versatile farm equipment, which brought leadership in four-wheel drive tractors, a category where Ford had almost no presence. By 1990, Ford New Holland employed 17,000 people and brought in nearly $3 billion in revenue. They had become the third largest farm equipment manufacturer in the world. Ford had successfully applied car-making expertise to agriculture. But Ford Motor Company was fighting hard battles in its main business. Cars and trucks needed all of management's attention. Agriculture, despite the success, was becoming a distraction they could not afford. In 1991, Fiat Group bought 80% of Ford New Holland. The rest followed in 1993. Fiat had made tractors for decades through its own division, but the company was mainly European. To compete with global leaders like John Deere, they needed to reach markets they could not access from Italy. The deal raised an obvious question. What did a company based in Turin know about farming in Iowa or Kansas. The skeptics had a point. European farms were smaller. Crops were different. Practices had developed along separate paths for generations. Fiat answered with money rather than words. They invested heavily in research and product development. They expanded factories. They kept New Holland's farming expertise intact while adding their own engineering capabilities. The Genesis tractor line showed that Fiat understood its customers. These machines offered better hydraulics, more comfort for operators, and improved fuel economy. New Holland sold 10,000 Genesis tractors in just over 2 years. American farmers would accept Italian ownership if the quality was right. By 1995, New Holland had grown to more than $5 billion in yearly sales. The following year, Fiat took the company public, selling about a third of the stock. New Holland became the most heavily traded stock on the New York Stock Exchange on its first day, but Fiat was not done building. On November 12, 1999, New Holland and Case Corporation officially combined. New Holland paid $4.6 billion to create CNH Global. The thinking behind the deal was straightforward. Case brought heavy equipment, construction machinery, and the large-scale farm equipment that worked serious acreage. New Holland contributed strength in hay and forage harvesting, plus a solid tractor lineup. The two companies covered different ground with very little overlap. More importantly, both faced the same problem. John Deere controlled the industry. The biggest customer base, the deepest dealer relationships, the strongest brand. Neither Case nor New Holland had the resources to challenge that position alone. Together, they might. The merger created immediate benefits. The combined company could share parts and technology across both brands. They could cut costs by combining factories. They could reach more farmers through their combined dealer networks. CNH kept both brand names separate. Case focused on cotton, sugarcane, and large grain operations. New Holland concentrated on hay, grapes, and mixed farming. This let the company serve different customer groups without competing against itself. The results came quickly. CNH Global became the second largest agricultural equipment manufacturer in the world. For the first time in years, John Deere faced a competitor with real resources and scale. In 2013, CNH Global merged with Fiat Industrial to form CNH Industrial, a combined company worth nearly $20 billion. This was change on a completely different level. CNH Industrial brought farm equipment, construction machinery, commercial trucks, and engine manufacturing under one roof. The new company had 64 factories worldwide, nearly 50 research centers, and more than 68,000 employees. The challenge for New Holland was keeping its identity inside something this huge. They were no longer a company. They were a brand within an industrial giant. New Holland handled this by staying focused on farmers, while using the larger company's resources. They kept developing products for their specific customers. They maintained their dealer relationships. They invested in new technologies like alternative fuels and precision farming systems. The CNH industrial structure actually helped New Holland do things it never could have done alone. The company now had research budgets that smaller competitors could not match. They could develop hydrogen-powered tractors, methane-fueled equipment, and autonomous systems while still making the reliable balers their customers expected. By 2024, CNH Industrial brought in nearly $20 billion in yearly revenue. New Holland operated 18 factories across North America, Europe, and Asia. Their plant in Basildon, England, celebrated 60 years of operation and built its 2 millionth tractor. The story of New Holland is often told as a story of invention: the freeze-proof engine, the automatic baler, the twin-rotor combine. These technologies genuinely changed farming, and they deserve credit. But the bigger story is about how a small Pennsylvania manufacturer became a global force through combining with others rather than growing alone. Every major phase of New Holland's history involved gaining capabilities they could not have built fast enough on their own. Sperry brought military engineering standards and global ambition. Ford added manufacturing know-how and tractor technology. Fiat delivered European market access and serious investment money. Case provided scale and a broader product range. Fiat Industrial created a corporate structure capable of competing at the highest level. Each merger solved problems that would have taken decades to fix through internal growth. Each combination created something neither side could have built separately. This does not take away from the engineering achievements. New Holland genuinely created technologies that made farming more productive and less backbreaking. But those inventions reached farmers on 6 continents because of corporate combinations that built the distribution networks, the service capabilities, and the manufacturing scale to deliver them. Today, New Holland continues investing in technologies that will shape farming for decades. Hydrogen tractors, methane-powered equipment, autonomous systems, and precision agriculture platforms are all in development or already available. These represent real innovation driven by what farmers actually need, but they also represent capabilities made possible by a corporate structure built through mergers over more than 7 decades. The resources to develop hydrogen power systems do not come from selling balers in Pennsylvania. They come from being part of a $20 billion industrial operation with global reach. Abraham Zimmerman solved a problem for Pennsylvania farmers in 1895. The company that carries his legacy forward now serves farmers in more than 170 countries. That growth happened because each generation of leadership understood when building alone was not enough, and when joining forces with others could create something larger than either could achieve separately. So here is a question worth considering. New Holland survived the Depression, multiple ownership changes, and decades of industry upheaval by merging its way to the top. But is that strategy repeatable today? With only a handful of major players left in agricultural equipment, has the merger path finally run out of road? Or will the next generation of farm technology, autonomous tractors, hydrogen power, artificial intelligence, create new opportunities for combinations that nobody sees coming yet? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you found this story interesting, subscribe for more looks into the industrial history that shaped the world we live in.